Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at RKLB. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have managed to follow through in our interpretation to push higher within a fifth wave to the upside within this area. Although since we managed after a larger correction to extend even higher, I am heavily considering, since there are a couple of options to be tracking this pattern, but I'm heavily considering an internal extension within this structure. So technically it is possible for us to be tracking here a 1-2 setup and look for a third wave in a more direct fashion. This would have quite bullish implications, but honestly there is no direct reason to be tracking directly such a bullish and outlandish pattern, where honestly I could easily consider this fifth wave that has occurred from this low in April to this top in around October to have been part of the wave 3, and I can consider this to have been the wave 4 bottom, and now we are in the actual fifth wave to the upside. Now internally within this structure we had a couple of options, but we have followed through in the interpretation of a larger ending diagonal to be formed. This is done, doesn't matter too much exactly what type of scenario played out, but we did manage to hold both areas of support even for the outlandish interpretation of an impulse, although it was a heavy one to be taking in really. And now we can anyway focus on the larger fifth wave that we can now track on the larger time frame. And for this interpretation, just more for a sanity check, we can even look here for the area of support for a wave 4, since I don't really expect us to get back to those levels, not anytime soon anyway, but we can have a sanity check that we did manage to get to the first level of support within this area before launching into the next fifth wave to the upside. And although we could form a top sooner rather than later, I am actually heavily considering that this may be forming an even larger overall pattern. I will be tracking such a bullish scenario, but for that we will first focus immediately here at an initial 5-wave move to the upside, because we need to form this structure before we can look for the larger pattern anyway. Sure, a larger ABC structure could work within a wave 1 where this would be in a white interpretation, where in the blue scenario I would absolutely need a 5-wave move to occur, because this would assume that we are completing this larger wave 5, or this wave 5, because in a larger interpretation of the wave 5 we could be forming a larger ABC in a wave 1 as part of an ending diagonal. Basically the same pattern that we have built here in a 1, 2, 3, 4th and the 5th could occur in this larger fifth wave in a 1, 2, 3, 4th and the 5th. Now at this point internally we will focus on the idea of an impulse, since clearly the momentum is even now increasing, and only in the last couple of weeks we basically pushed here nearly 50%, and we seem to still be going, where within this structure I have a couple of interpretations. So I could be looking even internally for an initial wave 1 to the upside, but I am considering more that here we have a 1-2 setup, and then we have either another double 1-2 1-2 setup here, where this would be a third wave up, or it would be a 1-2 and an ABC structure within the wave 3. Both interpretations work fine, they both can fit here within a wave 1, and internally we are again going to focus on the idea of an impulse, the idea of a 1-2 setup to occur within this area, then a third wave that we would be in right now. And yes, this is expected actually to extend considerably further, especially if this is indeed a wave 3 that is forming to the upside. Now in this interpretation I am considering also internally here another 1-2 setup, and if we want to go even further than that, we can track even to another layer, another subdivision, a 1-2 setup in this area, where I would consider that this third wave would be towards the end. I don't necessarily need to consider a top to be in place just yet, but I would also not necessarily expect too many further extensions, since this move does start to slow down a bit and we should expect a wave 4 correction sooner rather than later. And in such a scenario I would be watching out here the levels of support for a wave 4 between the $73 all the way down to the $67.6 level. Now again, I could still see very easily this wave 3 extend further higher, I would probably even prefer a tiny additional high within this area where, yeah, if I wanted internally, I could consider here something like 1, 2, 3, 4th, and the 5th to occur. Now, we can even draw a quick area of support for such an interpretation. It's between the $77.6 all the way down to the $76.6 level, but yeah, it is on a very small time frame, nothing too reliable. Yeah, sure, we can look for an extension directly higher, but honestly, it is pretty difficult and not necessarily recommended to be looking on such a small time frame for such patterns. And for now, this is pretty much it for the idea of an impulse, and this is pretty much it for the internal structure anyway, because even in the interpretation that we could be tracking here a larger A, B, C movement, I would basically be looking for an identical pattern to unfold at least until this wave 3 is complete. Yeah, I would still expect this impulse to unfold, and I would still expect the same 5-wave structure to be happening within this area. Now, within the wave C, we could see a diagonal pattern in the end, and if we fail to hold here the areas of support for the idea of an impulse, we will need to resume to that scenario. But right now, there is no reason to be too bearish on the expectations, at least of this internal movement to the upside, where once this wave C is complete, we would expect still a 4th and a 5th, whereas if we complete a wave 3 in the white scenario, we would expect a 4th and a 5th, but this would be only an internal wave 3 within this area, and we would expect quite considerable further extensions within this larger structure. And again, from a large time frame perspective, I want to remind you, we could complete this 5th wave within this structure immediately. Yeah, when this wave 1 is complete, this wave 5 in blue could also be done. In white, we are going to track a possible extension higher, but we will need to be aware that this structure, this chart, doesn't need to form any additional highs to form a larger, or to have formed a larger 5-wave move to the upside, and we will be prepared for an quite substantial correction afterwards in a wave 2, where yeah, we should be ready even for a break below the beginning of this wave 4, for example. That is a common point to actually see within a correction in a wave 2. And I suppose before we close off, we could also add the interpretation in orange, because yeah, I want to make it abundantly clear that yeah, even within the orange scenario, once this wave C is complete, we can still see further highs. In fact, it would be preferred. There are interpretations that would allow us to only have an ABC structure, something like this, to the upside in a wave 1, yeah, within a large leading diagonal within this 5th wave. In the white interpretation, basically, we could be forming only ABC structures throughout the entire structure in this uptrend. But at the moment, we are tracking the impulse. That would be the first scenario to get invalidated, and this is the main focus at the moment, where yeah, we are in the larger correction, or excuse me, the smaller correction probably right now, yeah, internally, where we may still see an extension within this wave 3, but we should be looking for a wave 4 to occur at any point right now, because yeah, the momentum is slowing down, and we would like to see a deeper retracement, ideally to reach here the area of support. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.